My goodness.
Oh, that's
I love
beautiful.
it. I love it.
Mr. Elliott could use a
well.
pair.
All these
That
meetings.
strategic planning will do it for you.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we put it.
What's your favorite? 1C.
We put it, one of our goals is to make Sonny mad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no.
1C.
It was a good session though, Sonny. I think we got a
We
lot of
missed
good
you.
things happening.
We missed
so.
you.
I read through the thing again last night, and I only have a couple little notes, and it
We
wasn't
don't
any
care
of it
you
that was
weren't
that
here.
important.
We don't care you weren't here.
Yeah, nothing that I had was worth me taking off all afternoon to come and do. I was sure
Commissioner
of that.
Love coming her way.
Actually, we changed more in that than I thought we would. Good changes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Village manager at 3 Oaks.
yeah.
that was good, yeah.
Threw it around.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June meeting of the Grand Traverse County Ways and Means Committee. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will rise, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sarah, will you call the roll, please?
Thomas. Here. Rennie.
Here.
Max Bauer.
Here.
Lemcool.
Here.
Lathrop.
Here.
Inman.
Here.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. That brings us to the approval of the minutes of the May 15th meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Rennie. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. If you would read the rules, please, Sarah.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The commissioners shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Having heard the rules for public comment, is anyone wishing to make comment at this time? We will also take comment during the discussion of agenda items. Seeing none, we'll move forward. Are there any items to be added to the agenda?
The quitclaim deed on our desk.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
I'd like to add an item to the agenda.
Okay, and
I would like to bring up and discuss the Twin Lakes swimming area tonight.
okay, we'll put Twin Lakes under new business.
And then Mr. Chairman, the quitclaim deed is something I put together at the request of Resource Management, and it deals with the transfer station in Garfield Township.
Okay, so that will be item 1 under new business, and Twin Lakes swimming area it'd be number 2 under new business. Any other items?
I was just going to ask, do we have Exhibit A?
I did not bring it with me. I can run to my office and get a copy, but Exhibit A is the legal description.
Well, I'd like to know where it is.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's
I
the
can
property
get
on
it.
Rennie School Road where they had the transfer station.
Where?
Rennie School Road, where they had the old transfer station before they opened the tower facility. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's approximately a 4-acre site where that transfer
On
facility.
Rennie School Road?
Yeah, right in front of Elmer's.
Okay.
All right, is there any other items? Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Motion by Inman, supported by Rennie. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. We have no items on the consent calendar this evening. We have no special orders of business, so we will move forward to the department action items. Equalization?
What about copy?
We have
Copy.
approval for copy bids for the consent calendar.
Yeah. That's in the,
Top of the first, next page.
Oh, I'm
that's in
sorry.
the consent
There
calendar.
is one on the 6th page. All right, copier bids. That's on the consent calendar.
So we need to.
Anyone wanting to,
I'll move for approval of the consent calendar.
okay. Any support?
Second.
Should we read?
Normally you got to read the consent calendar.
Supposed to
in the
read it, I
minutes.
think.
Yeah.
I'll still move for approval of the consent. It's been a long day.
Sarah wants to do something.
Oh, I'm trying to get us all out of here early.
Yeah, no.
I'll read fast. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission staff or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, received in file, or approval is approved by the single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Item B, approval 1, copier bids.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there any item wishing to be removed from the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent
I
calendar.
still move for approval of the consent calendar.
Motion by Max Bauer, supported by Thomas. I would note that on my copy, A and B there says there's none, and then on the second
I
page
hear
it
you.
says there's some. It's
These
on
things
there, so.
happen.
Okay, having heard the consent calendar, all those, roll call vote, please.
Rennie?
Yes?
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Equalization.
I'm pinch hitting for the equalization director tonight. What we have here is the rate request. You have seen this form before, and the reason it's coming to you this evening is we're going to levy the 4.9838 mills for the county here very soon, and we need to have this approved. We have also included the 3 other county millages, the medical care facility, and the 2 millages for the Commission on Aging. Those millages are not levied until December 1st, but Jim Baker and his staff have prepared this, done all of the necessary calculations. I have reviewed it, and we ask for your approval of these millage rates.
Move for approval.
Motion by Inman, supported by Thomas.
Sure.
Herb?
Yeah, I noticed that the senior center millage runs out in 15 instead of 16 like the Commission on Aging does. Is there a reason for that?
It was the timing when we did it.
I thought we put them out both on the ballot at the same time.
No, we did not.
Staggered them.
Nope.
So the senior center's going to have to come out for a millage in 15 then? Or Commission on Aging is going to have to come out for a millage on the senior center?
Yeah. 2 separate millages, yes.
I knew it was 2 separate
It's
villages,
2
but I
separate,
didn't.
and
They did
at
them at
this
2 separate
moment, the
elected.
Commission on Aging Board has not decided whether to request both of them at the same time or separately, but from what I've gathered at Commission on Aging board members, or board meetings, I believe they will be separate.
So, and then I noticed that the medical care is still listed as FIA, and I think it should be Department of Human Services, DHS.
That's true. Okay.
FIA's been changed a long time ago.
That's the original format that it was presented in.
Do
So
we
I don't
have-
know.
Do we have to approve it that way, Dean?
I would recommend that it be approved as Jim has prepared this
All right.
form.
And that's,
Okay.
that's probably the title when it was put in place, so.
All right.
All right.
And it runs out in 14, so that's cool.
But remember, with those that are dated December, those levies are, those millages will be levied on December 1st of 2014. So you have to remember there's a
Right.
year subsequent
Yeah.
that tax will be collected.
Right. And this is the former Form L4029. I see the format's a little bit different than what we've seen before, but
But this is the same form. This is one of the forms that the state has not changed. It has always come to you on the L4029.
4029. Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. General fund trial balances?
I'm sensing you want me to be brief, so I will be brief. The,
Are we skipping
I didn't
resource
Skip
recovery?
B.
I'm just going through the agenda. All right, you wouldn't do resource recovery.
I'm just,
Well,
I'm sorry to pick
I'm
at
going
you,
down
Sonny.
through, I was going through the pages,
The learning
and there wasn't a
stuff on
page for resource recovery.
is he new
All
at
right,
this?
discussion regarding resource recovery, long-term direction of the department. Dave, do you want to start?
Yes, we put this on the agenda last week because I announced in my administrator's report that I was taking applications, or we have taken applications for a resource recovery director, and we have a stack of candidates. And before we go through the process of hiring someone, appointing a committee to make the selection and going through all that, I thought that we should have that discussion about where we're going with the department, whether it's long-term. I know it's our intention to have that department handling recycling and resource recovery, indefinitely, and at what level of service, so that the department head, if and when they're hired, knows what to expect.
Larry?
It's just my opinion that the department has been very valuable to Grand Traverse County, our board, and to the citizens. The townships really speak highly of it, especially when we're involved in the recycling effort and the promotion of that, and less inventory going into the landfill. And I know there's been just the ongoing debate, really, that I felt was the only discussion item on this, and resource recovery the committee has been very helpful with this, but I'm perfectly, I know you might have a disregard for this, but I'm perfectly happy with the landfill surcharge as it is, and we would just continue to balance that surcharge out with their fund balance, and if we need to do something different with it because of volume, we can address that. But I think it's a source of funding that we've used for the department funding, and it's a source that the public has not objected to. So I think in essence, I think we need to make a statement as a board, and that is, we support the department, we support the current structure and the funding source, and then we can move on with some satisfaction that whoever comes in is going to have a comfort level to stick around. But that's just my thought.
Herb?
I got a nice email from Gene Blood from Garfield Township expressing the desire to continue on the direction we are, and what kind of value we've had in our community on and the successes that the resource recovery has had, and encouraging me to continue on supporting this. I think it's probably one of the best bang for the bucks we've gotten for our community. I just question in my own mind, are we duplicating services that are being done by some of the haulers? And can we do more collaboration with them in doing more promotion? And I don't know that answer. It's just one of those questions that people have asked me to say, why don't you look at, that American Waste is out there doing marketing on recycling, but are they doing as much as we are? I don't know. Kim has done just an outstanding job. I love the newsletter every month. He seems to be having a great relationship with the community, and so, it's one of those balancing acts, is trying to figure out what's best for our community.
Okay, Dan?
Thank you. And Mr. Benda, I was wondering two things. Why did the former director quit in the first place? And number two, what does this program cost us a year? Can you answer those two things?
You're going to have to look up the answer to the number two. Right now,
Anything on the general fund?
yeah, it doesn't cost anything out of the general fund, as Commissioner Inman just pointed out. It's funded by tipping fees, and those tipping fees were reduced by the board to $2 from $4 and something.
Yeah,
$4.63, I think.
Sonny can probably address
Yeah, you
that.
probably know. Anyway, the director took that as a signal that, we weren't very supportive of his department, although there was a large fund balance, and, it was my understanding that the board was doing this to reduce that fund balance because they felt that too much had accumulated, and they've done a great job of reducing costs in the department and continuing their services. So that was a positive thing, but I don't know that the director interpreted it that way. Plus, there had been some remarks from folks in the community and others that led him to believe that there wasn't a lot of support for his department and that his job may be in jeopardy. So he went and found a different job. That's pretty much
Now, I'm sorry to be so ignorant. What is the tipping fee?
it's a per ton
Surcharge.
surcharge on waste, solid waste.
How does
To
it
the
get charged?
It's a
landfill.
tax.
When it goes to the
Surcharge
landfill.
tax.
It's a tax. Do they get taxed, is it on their property taxes, or what?
No, it's
No.
based on the
When it-
ton.
If I
It's
could,
arriving.
maybe I can help with that a little bit.
Okay.
When a garbage truck goes to the landfill, it is weighed when it goes in, it's weighed when it comes out. They try to determine what percentage of the load came from Grand Traverse County. Based on how many ton of the load comes from Grand Traverse County, they are charged $2 per ton, which is paid to Grand Traverse County to fund the Resource Recovery Department.
So we tax haulers.
No, we tax citizens.
We tax
We tax-
citizens.
Yeah. So your garbage-
We charge the hauler, well, actually, we charge the landfill. The landfill's responsible to collect the surcharge and pay it to Grand Traverse County.
So it ultimately comes out of the haulers, who's paying it?
You,
Well, the taxpayer, the citizen or whoever is paying them to haul the waste from Grand Traverse County,
Yeah.
Probably know.
they
It's wrapped
they
up
are
in your
paying it
bill.
as part of their garbage bill.
Wrapped up, it's somewhere in your bill.
And
Sonny, I think it's,
we've had a lot of discussion over the years about having it shown separately on the bills and all of those kind of things, and they've decided not to do that. They've always kept it bundled.
Okay, thank you.
Sonny, I think it's also important to note that the majority of the tipping fee is paid by the commercial people, and they do not receive the services. So
65 to 70% of the waste stream in Grand Traverse County comes from commercial enterprise. But we run a resource recovery department which has very minimal services available to commercial businesses.
So, and then, maybe you want to cover some of the history, because we were at $9 a ton, and then lowered it, and then lowered it. So I'm not so sure we shouldn't put together a paper on where we're at.
We used
So
to charge it by the yard,
Yeah,
by the cubic yard. And then once the landfills put in scales and started charging their customers, the people that are hauling it in, whether it be a commercial hauler or an individual, they started changing it to the tonnage, and then we converted the yardage figure over to tonnage. And it's quite interesting, because that number of tons coming from the landfill has went up and down like a yo-yo. It looked like a roller coaster if you actually put it in a graph. But there were years that it was going down double digits every year, and then all of a sudden it went up. And what was interesting was
What was being claimed.
we can get into all kinds of discussion about this issue, and I can give you all kinds of history that most of you don't want to hear. But the fact is that we've collected the landfill surcharge for years, and I've always contended that we are carrying a residential recycling program and resource recovery department on the backs of our commercial enterprises.
It sounds like that to me. Just as a freshman here, it sounds like
But,
if they're paying
you know-
75% of it.
And it's an enterprise fund, and their budget comes out of the monies that is collected from the surcharge. And when we looked at it last year and reduced the surcharge by a vote of 8-1, I think, the surplus, or the fund balance, was like 300% of their annual budget. And what was interesting is, even though they budgeted money in 2012 out of their fund balance, at the end of the year, their fund balance grew, because they didn't end up spending all of the funding.
because we had a wonderful resource recovery manager.
We did that, and, there's a lot of issues going on. One of the things that happens is, just like right now, there's nothing budgeted for C&D development, or C&D waste, but we know that Indigo Hotel is going to bring in a significant amount of revenue, you know, based on some preliminary numbers of how many cubic yards they're going to take out in dirt that has to be taken to the landfill. We're going to pull about $54,000 of revenue out of the hole in the ground that they're going to dig to put the Indigo Hotel in. You know, but none of that money was budgeted.
How does that go for economic development?
It goes to resource recovery when it goes to the landfill.
Yeah.
Charlie?
Has the budget dropped for that outfit over the past few years?
Yes.
Significantly?
Dramatically,
Okay, significantly is what I understand.
Right.
yes.
I had a meeting with Bob before he sent that letter, a couple of days. He expressed to me a concern that he did not have the backing from the county, period, and that's why he was looking for another job. And he did bring up the surcharge. And he did say that they are looking at their holdover, their fund balance, and they're trying to reduce that, put that more in line with what we'd like to see generally. But he felt a lack of support for that operation is what he conveyed to me. And I would like to know what that's all about.
Chris?
Bob met with me as well. I assured him that he had my support. I could certainly only speak for myself.
Dan?
Do the private haulers offer this service to the public as well?
Yes and no. They do recycling issues. They do not do household hazardous waste. They do not do pesticide, insecticide. They don't do batteries. Are they doing batteries now in the haulers? I think some of them are, but, you know.
We're not competing with them?
No.
Okay.
You know, the things that we do that private haulers can't do is things like household hazardous waste, specialized collection.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think if I can just extract what I think had occurred in Bob's thinking is that for a long time, for 10 years or so plus, the county board, through transitions in people and everything else, have always had a debate just about annually about how to fund the department. And there were options. There were options to continue the landfill surcharge or adjust it to an accordingly level based on volume. And what we saw was the public really never came in and displayed any displeasure with how we were doing it. And it did not come out of our general fund. So the department was funding itself through the activity of putting items in the landfill. And the goal was eventually, with the increased recycling, you know, you'd have less activity in the landfill, and then you'd have less volume, and, you know, we would have to face that fact at some point in time. And then there was some discussion, because the issue was it wasn't a consistent source of funding that you can rely on because we didn't know what the volume was going to be year to year. Then we got into other issues of, okay, there were two other alternatives. One included a special assessment fee on every homeowner, which we didn't really want to deliver because it would be a special tax on everyone, and everyone does different things with their stuff. So we thought that would be a big uproar. And then there's another one where it would actually have to be voted on. You know, there's two different PA numbers, and for a higher dollar amount to cover the cost of the department. So we said, for now, the landfill surcharge, at least the majority of us through a number of years, said this is the least resistant way to go, but it's probably not the most consistent funding source that we can rely on. We'll just have to look at it year to year. And Bob, I think, got frustrated with the commitment that from us that what source are we going to use, and two, depending on the volume coming in, up or down, we were going to adjust the landfill surcharge to accommodate that, and there was never, we did it by year, which got frustrating for him. That's, I think, what happened.
We also have to remember that it used to be under the Department of Public Works, and then we brought it underneath the county commissioners. So that was done just a year ago to bring that under our responsibility, which makes it somewhat political. Because as the commission changes and the points of view change, I think that's what worried Bob probably more than anything else.
Right.
So, you know, I really feel, you know, that there's a whole lot of things that we've done right. You know, we've done some very good things for our resource recovery. I think the people want it. I think they use it, the majority of. There's other options out there that other communities that we'd also talked about is should we have one trash hauler for the whole county? And the township said, no, we don't want you to do that. But then some of the townships, they signed an agreement with a hauler and said, we want special rates. Mine went from $60 a quarter to $30. And so that was a major savings, as far as I'm concerned, in not only my residential, but also any of the rentals that I have. So to me, that was a huge savings, so that was a positive. And, but on the same token, then also there's mandatory recycling, if you want to get into it, which most people are not going to support. Some will, some won't. And so there's all kinds of issues that we have to, now that it's under our responsibilities, it's up to us to decide where those are going to go and what we're going to do with it. So I think I've covered some of it, so have you, Sonny, and
Yeah, and one of the things, Charlie, when you mentioned the fact that the budget has been cut significantly, Grand Traverse County was funding 5 transfer facilities. 5? I think it's 5.
Mm-hmm.
And we no longer fund any of those. So that was a savings of about $600,000 a year.
Right.
American Waste provides that services now at no cost to us.
Those were the drop-offs for recycling.
Drop-off sites.
Yeah.
So that when you talk about their budget was cut significantly, that was primarily where it was at, is when we eliminated the drop-off sites.
And also, we established a MRF station, material recovery station. We were looking at doing it, but American Waste has really put it together. And that's why the recycling rate is so high, because they now are separating that. That's their business, and they're making money.
Our 2012 numbers will show that the countywide recycling rate will be close to 40%.
That's what they said.
If not over 40%. I expect it to be over 40%.
But I think, that's why you need somebody there to monitor those reports and make sure that everything's coming through properly, and working with the community and getting all these programs out and continue keeping that recycling rate up, and because eventually we're going to run out of room to be able to put it. Grand Traverse County owns a piece of property that is designated for a dump.
No, we
But
don't.
we never wanted to put it there.
No, we voted that
Oh,
down.
that's right, we did change
We
it.
pledged not to.
We took it out
We're
of
going to
there.
have Whitewater Township in here tomorrow night.
No, we took it out. I mean, to begin with, it was designated for a dump. We do not have a dump in Grand Traverse
Thank you,
County.
Chris.
Way to go, Larry.
Anytime,
So-
Larry.
Yeah, so we don't have a dump a facility to take our trash in Grand Traverse County, so it all has to be shipped out to Leelanau County or Manistee, or Cadillac.
Wexford, yeah.
Wexford, yeah.
Or
So-
Waters. We have a laundry list of approved trash receiving facilities.
And Sonny sat on that resource recovery for many years, so he's the one that really got more knowledgeable about it.
No, Kim Elliott, the interim director, is here, and Jim Crothers, the chairman of the Resource Recovery Council. I would suggest that we hear from them.
That'd be great.
Idea.
Good, yeah.
Whichever first, or if you want to do it as a team, I don't care.
Coin.
Don't let fear and common sense hold you back.
Fear and common sense.
Wow.
Fear and common sense, huh?
Good evening, Kim Elliott, Marketing Education Specialist or Interim Manager of Resource Recovery Department for Grand Traverse County.
And Jim Carruthers, City Commissioner and Chair of the Resource Recovery Department.
And what I'm going to do is just answer any questions that you might have. It sounds like you pretty much know about the department, what's going on. If you have any specific questions, I'll answer them for you.
Well, I would share, I don't know if you all have seen the 2012 solid waste report. I don't know if that was in your packet that Bob presented. If not, we can get you copies, and you should have it, and you should have received it. But it really does highlight the department quite well, and points out that our landfill rates are down and our recycling is up. And that's kind of what we've been trying to do with the department. It speaks to the volumes and where we move our trash, and I think our landfill volume declined about 15,700 tons in 2012, which is a good move, is the way we look at it, because that means people are recycling. We do, the haulers do use Manistee landfill, Glenn's landfill, Waters landfill, and the Wexford County landfill. The recycling volumes increased in 2012 by 1,816 tons. The rate that we were tracking in 2012 was 36.23%. The national rate is 32%. So we're above the national rate, and as Sunny was pointing out, we might even exceed our rate for 2012 and be at 40%. So we're showing that people in Grand Traverse County take their recycling seriously, and we're doing a good job at it due to the department's encouragement and enforcement of the various programs that are out there. Special programs that we do, household hazardous waste, we have held 3, if not 4 events per year. 19% of that is from commercial related businesses. We allow the commercial related businesses to provide their waste at our household hazardous waste programs. We've collected over 50,000 pounds of materials from over 600 residents and businesses in the area each time, or is that, I think that might be the total. So that's been a very popular program. If any of you have participated, the lines down the road, we fill up the appointments by phone or internet pretty darn quickly. We also, you see the battery drop boxes around the county at the various facilities. We're the one group that is recycling batteries, and our staff physically has to take each battery and put it in a Ziploc bag. And it's an odd thing. We have one staff person right now, but over the
Who
years,
sits and does batteries?
all of our staff have done the battery program. We do have Goodwill, has helped us in the past. I'm not sure if they're still helping us with the battery collection.
They are.
But more than not, our staff is sitting there having to separate these batteries, so to put them off at the right locations. We do a pretty comprehensive complex fluorescent light bulb return program, and we do have a number of people who sit on our board. We've changed the board dynamics and cut the numbers, but we have township representation, we have industry representation, we have city representation, we have environmental representation, and so, and Sunny does sit on the board, I sit on the board, of course. The brush site, the city-owned brush site run by the county, is also, has been a revenue generator. We increased revenues by $6,556 last year, mainly due to some of these major storms that we've had when all of a sudden all the trees were broken and down on the streets of Traverse City. But we have a staff person there running that. Kim is responsible for all of the education, really, that's done around solid waste recycling, and he gives us a report at every meeting, and he's reached maybe, we think, 48,000 residents in the area with various information about our recycling programs. He's at all the events. We set up tables where you might have seen us at various events, so that's been very, very helpful. As Charlie did point out, we did decrease our revenue in half in 2010 when the rollouts left, but we, decreased our revenue, or our budget, and that's in a time when all departments were being asked to decrease their budgets, and resource recovery was the largest decrease of all the departments. And we continue to be I guess, pretty lean in our budget because we're taking in more revenue than our expenditures, but not by much. But we do have a large fund balance. But I always thought conservative financing built fund balances up for rainy days, and we've done very well in northern Michigan with fund balance. We have money in the bank. And yes, we should spend some of it, but I don't see we should spend it all because then we have no rainy day fund. So we've been lucky over the past 20 years with our leadership, both in the county and the city, for developing our fund balances. And thankfully, we have that to rely on. So basically, I think we have a great group of people. We are down to one person in the department, which is very frustrating for Kim because he has to be the secretary, the manager, answer the phone, respond to everything. So you do have several job descriptions in the department for our manager, our education and marketing specialist, and an office clerk. I encouraged Dave Benda to move forward with this when Bob did resign, and Bob did come to me as well, and I was very sad to hear him go, but I understand his reasonings why. I think many of us have been at the same table over the past 10 years, as Larry pointed out, arguing or discussing how we're going to fund the department. And there's many ways. And it's difficult for us, who are elected people, to do this, because if you raise people's taxes, they might think twice about voting you back in. So that's been the problem. But yes, our landfill surcharge is funding the department. Yes, it's being charged to the haulers, and the haulers do bury that into the bill. But as Traverse City has found, when we did the single hauler program, we've, I think, decreased it was about $40 a month for trash and recycling service. We're down to $11 a month. I believe it's close to $11.
It was 60.
Yeah. So we've done, and we have less trucks on our street. We have, I mean, in the past, I think it was 3 or 4 days a week, we had multiple trucks rambling down our alleys. 1, it wasn't safe. 2, it was trashing our roads. And 3, we have changed the whole system to make it so people can just put stuff at the curb and it goes away for a lot cheaper. And that was the case. And we have had always haulers on our board. And we continue to have haulers on our board, and we have continued to have haulers come to our meetings. And actually, Waste Management's disappeared all of a sudden. It's been kind of interesting. We know they've disappeared in general because they've lost a lot of the residential service, but they don't come to our meetings anymore. So they're not, and they were the one hauler that was there sort of questioning us every step of the way. Well, they've disappeared. And I take that as we're doing something good. There's nothing to really complain about much anymore, other than that we don't have enough manpower to make things happen. So you did receive the letter from Gene Blood from Garfield Township, which Herb pointed out, and that's, I believe, generally what most folks on resource recovery are supporting. I can't speak for them, but most do attend and support what we're doing, and I'm just here to say we really value that. I just remembered I wanted to point out one more thing. Kim did let us know at our last meeting that Newport News, Virginia, which is, I don't know how, a large city in Virginia, and they have a staff of about 20 people, discovered our Recycle Smart program on the internet. And they're actually been calling and talking to Kim and Bob about what we do, and they're modeling what our program is to their program. And we're doing that with a staff of 2.5. And their staff of 20 couldn't put together with what we've put together over the years. And I mean, I'll read you one of the quotes from their recycling coordinator. "We were very impressed with the content and layout of your website, as well as some of the programs you have in place. In fact, I have already directed my staff to study your Take It Back recycling program and see how we might emulate it." So we have other cities in the country looking to us for what we're doing in Little Traverse City, Grand Traverse County, Michigan. So to me, that was a great thing at our last meeting to hear, because our little department is groundbreaking in a way. So again, I'm here to support the department and support our programs and say that recycling is up, and landfill dumping is down. We've cleaned up most all of our illegal dump sites. Which board member was that? About 2 years ago, we had a board member come to us wanting to help with the idea of cleaning up our illegal dump sites. At one point, Grand Traverse County was close to #1 for illegal dump sites in the state of Michigan. Within 2 years, and basically Bob and Kim going out on weekends and a handful of volunteers, we've cleaned up every illegal dump site. I know they come back. We all know there's farm dumps. We all know there's that 2-track back into the woods, and we all see the washing machine and the mattress and such tossed out the door, and it's a constant thing. But we got ourselves off that list. We're not the #1 illegal dump site anymore, due to our department and their good work. So we do little things, but I think they have big outcomes. And so I'm here just to plead the support for the department, and hope you will support it in the future.
Herb?
I think you do, you don't give Kim enough credit for putting that recycle program back, because he's kind of the one that brought it forward, and your board supported him and be able to make sure that happened. And we just need to say thanks, Kim, because Kim's the one who kind of developed that, if I remember correctly.
You copyrighted that or something, didn't you?
Recycle Smart piece.
There's-
Our logo, I did.
Yeah.
That was important for a few dollars to hang on to that, so.
Yeah. I just want to say
Thank you.
thank you, Kim, for what you've done there. So
Thank you.
that's the innovative employees that we have working for our county.
Well, that's the #1 area of our website that's visited. This Take It Back program is certainly So thank you to the businesses that belong to it that accept product for reuse, recycling, or proper disposal. And they fill out a form beforehand, and then we put them on our website. Thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you also, Kim. In my District 7, I hear no complaints about the recycle idea. Everyone is for that. I'd like to know what you're doing about your fund balance. Are you trying to bring that more in line with numbers that the rest of us use, or how can you make this look better so you can get or garner more support, if you will?
Well, Commissioner Rennie, at this stage right now, to be honest with you, I got a lot of plates spinning. I haven't looked at that far down the road.
Well, how do you feel about the surcharge, the level of the surcharge now with declining amounts going to landfill? Isn't that going to hurt you?
Yeah, the way it's set up right now, and Bob had provided this before, that it's just a matter of time, and that time's short-lived. It's going to be, a couple of years. Then what?
So do you guys have a plan or a number you'd like, or how are you going to
Well,
determine that?
our original plan, without getting the specifics, was when we developed the fund balance, and I know it was high, and Bob knows high, and we talked about it.
He mentioned that.
Yeah, that, it just can't disappear overnight. There was programs that him and I discussed that we wanted to implement, and what we did was had savings costs in other areas that created the fund balance. And as Sonny said, some of that was from the removal of the drop-off locations, but that was a management decision at that time that could have gone the other way. Currently, there's more drop-off recycling stations before there was when we were paying $300,000-$400,000 a year for them. There was 8, now there's 9. So I don't think fund balance is a bad thing. I'm a taxpayer. I live in Grand Traverse County. I think it shows fiscal responsibility.
To an extent.
To an extent, correct.
Okay.
But if you look at the history of the decline in expenditures and the increase in services, I would be all for that.
And I would say if we had more staff, we can do more programs. We could spend more of the money. We could have more household hazardous waste or more collection opportunities, but we can't have just one person or even a department of 2.5, continually providing programs that they're providing.
So if you had more headcount, you would feel that the board or county is behind you then? Would that help? How do you feel personally? I want to know.
How do I feel personally?
About your backing?
That's why I'm here too.
Yeah.
I got concerns like Bob does. I'm sure you probably look at me wondering that. I mean, I do. I don't know where we're going. I'm glad you never received a complaint in your township. I think the almost 7 years I've been with this department, I think we received 1 or 2, and they were minor, and we handled them. We never received any calls or complaining about the funding of this department or any services that we provided. There might have been a hiccup 1 or 2 over the years, and that's minimal, but we handled it in a professional and took care of it way. And you're right, and you brought this up earlier, and I wondered that when I started. The first week I started, I remember asking a question, everybody laughed. I said, let me see, you hired me to increase the awareness about recycling. That's correct. So theoretically, let's say I do a super job. I mean, just incredible, you can't believe it. And 100% recycles. Well, I just cost myself a job because now we have no funding.
Right, exactly. Understood. So is that the best way to look at this? Is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I think the way the surcharge was the way times are right now was probably the best way, in my opinion, to fund the department. We've had studies done before Bob got here where we hired a consultant and gave you all the options, and this is not the first time. It's probably not the best time to go to a taxpayer and ask for money for the department. So, but at $2 a ton, with landfill volumes declining, I mean, you can have a department, I guess, but what do you want? I mean,
so how does the board feel about that?
Well,
decline. It's kind of a catch-22, isn't it?
I have something on that, if you, Larry. Well, my recollection during the budget time for this year's budget, in which we reestablished a lower landfill surcharge is that, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong for those who are here, is that because we had a significant fund balance, we wanted to drop that down during 2013 to a point where we became comfortable with the fund balance moving forward at a certain level. Okay. And we projected, I think, the fund balance would be at the end of the year 200,000 or something in that area. I think, if I'm not incorrect on that. I mean, it was at a level where, you know, we have to, as a board of commissioners, and with help with you and your department, we'd have to figure out, you know, what is the acceptable fund balance, and then from there, we would have to make adjustments either annually based on the what's occurring at the landfill with the landfill surcharge. So the discussion, I think, occurred was that there was a debate about how far to drop it down, but we finally agreed to drop it down to 2. And I think the recommendation was at 2.5, I think, or something like that, or 3, I can't remember. But I think what we did is that we need to see how volume goes, see where the fund balance is at the end of the year, you know, towards budget time, try to establish the fund balance where we really want it, and then adjust the landfill surcharge if that's the method we're going to continue to go with on an annual basis. So the discussion was we might have to move this up next year. So that's kind of where I saw things going based on the budget discussions for your department. Now, what's missing out of that whole discussion is the commitment from the Board of Commissioners, at least for this standing board, is that we are willing to continue to have a fund balance at a certain level, and that we would be adjusting the landfill surcharge based on the activity so we can maintain the current staffing levels or whatever staffing levels that are acceptable in the department. And I think that's what you're really looking for. That would be my guess.
What is the percentage of your yearly budget that your fund balance now hold, you know, with respect to that? Is it like 20%, 50%? Don't we kind of go by an 18% thing or something like that?
It's 100%.
Okay, so it's
Their fund balance is projected at what, 268?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's 268, and their annual budget's about 112,000. So about 300% of the fund balance.
Which is why we've been lowering the
Right, which they're trying to do, I understand, but they need a number. Like we should say 20%.
Well, that's been the discussion, is that they needed to get the fund balance down in the 20% range. And the Resource Recovery Council does not necessarily support that decision. David?
Yeah, what I'm confused about with all this is it's easy enough to establish a fund balance policy for the Resource Recovery Department and say, well, we think that they ought to have so many months' worth of expenditures, or however you want to define it, and then set that number. And we can find where the surcharge needs to be in order to maintain that level of funding for the fund balance, so that it breaks even every year and that fund balance stays where it is. What we don't have is the Resource Recovery Council makes decisions about services, like Jim was saying, you know, how many household hazardous wastes can we do? You know, what they need some direction regarding the amount and level of services and whether they should be looking to expand those services and, you know, make it easier for people to recycle, easier for people to get rid of mercury light bulbs and, you know, batteries and all those things. You know, all that takes more time and effort and money. The question is how much, you know, and that's what's missing from the discussion is how much services. I mean, if you don't want any services, you don't have to pay any surcharge. You don't need any surcharges. You don't need any tipping fees. But if you want services, which services do you want? There's a regulatory function here, and there's a you know, a recycling function, and then there's an educational outreach to help people understand, what am I supposed to do with this? And you got to get something in front of their face and make it easy for them to see that.
And
websites and all.
I think part of that discussion, you know, has probably never been had, because when up until January of this year, Resource Recovery was under the Board of Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, and the decision was made to take the stepchild and bring it in under the Board of Commissioners. Because, to be honest with you, at least in my opinion, the Board of Public Works had no interest to be involved in solid waste anyway. Mm-hmm. And they've never given it a great deal of attention along the way.
Right.
You know, so, you know, we felt that it would better serve the community if we brought it in as a county department and had the Resource Recovery Manager answer to the county administrator. and then in turn under the Board of Commissioners. Because what we had before, the resource recovery manager really never was quite sure who his boss was, because he had to go to the Board of Public Works, and then he had to come to, come to the city or the county administrator, and then the Board of Commissioners is drawing his budget and setting it up. So it was really difficult to try to figure out who was in charge. And I think the decision was made to bring it in under the Board of Commissioners, have the manager answer to the county administrator. And we honestly have never had this discussion.
Right.
And we truly have never had this discussion. Chris?
Sonny, are you going to be taking public comment?
Sure. We will. If Jim and Kim have anything else to say, and
Well, I just want to thank Larry for his statements about looking at the landfill surcharge going up and going down. I mean, it's just been going down with and once you cut something, it's really hard to make it go back. But if you all are willing to say, well, if we need to raise that landfill surcharge next year, well, that's the first I've heard. And I appreciate that statement, because if we can start balancing our budget that way, that's one way to do it. As long as you have the will to raise that surcharge.
3 years ago, we had the highest surcharge in the state of Michigan. Right now, we have the lowest. So figure that one out one time. Okay. Nothing else?
My question is what's the return on investment? When you talk about expanding services, when we're already at a 40%, where do you go with that? And when do you start putting more money in than what you're having value coming back? And so I would be interested to hear that kind of a discussion, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that, Commissioner. That's a great question. If you're at 99.8%, how higher can you go? But the report since 2010 hasn't been completed. In 2010, we were at 36%. And we anticipate, as was said, probably be at 40 or better. So until we get to 100, there's always room for that, in my opinion. But also, being in the department, and there's probably a lot of things that people don't know, and one of them is that we receive about 5,000 phone calls a year to our phone as well. If you figure that out on a daily basis, that's 20-something phone calls, just in phone calls. Website, as the county has been emphasizing, is important to all departments, and to manage a website with information to the public is very important to them. You look at the printouts from Google Analytics, we're always in the top 10 of the county's websites being visited. So, what value is there? Those 63,000 pounds that Bob and I personally picked up of batteries and took care of. The 4,000 residents at the brush site, they use it on a yearly basis. The 48,000 people that go to our website or call our hotline each year, we do presentations for. The managing of the budget, the Clean Sweep program that we manage for 11 Northwest Michigan counties. There's a lot of things that's got a good value. You just have to depend on what type of measurement you're going to use for value. So.
My question wasn't so much as to what we're currently doing. Mm-hmm. It's if you said, we would like to have a staff of 3, and then you added another person, to what value would that be to adding another person? When do you start maximizing what's already there, and how you can't really expand that department that much more?
Well, I'm not.
I see some good things that you might want to do, and I understand that, but I just question the return on your investment in increasing your staff.
Yeah, well, I'm not looking at expanding the department in my eyes. I'm looking at getting back to what we had, get back to even. Because right now, I can tell you that with this services that we have right now, this is not a one-person department.
Yeah.
There's too many plates. So.
And just philosophy, the return on our investment is pure Michigan. It's a cleaner, greener community.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about what we're currently doing. I was thinking about, you mentioned there's other things you'd like to do.
Well, with one person, we can't do a whole lot right now. I'd
like to make a motion that we continue the resource recovery with having
Herb,
a
can I ask you
director,
to hold that so we can get the public comment?
whatever.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Pash, 503 West 8th Street, Traverse City. I think that when Kim and Jim were talking, I think one thing that they mentioned, you wanted to know something that they could do or improve on. I've heard recycle comments for years. I met Kim early when he started working, and the one thing, and what they made one statement that how the cars are backed up when they do the hazardous waste, and I've always felt that that program should be expanded, and if there were more times during the year to drop off, I'm sure that you would get more hazardous waste. And for me personally, I think hazardous waste is one of the most critical waste to deal with properly. I'm sure you're all familiar with Goldilocks, and which I think the simple way of putting it, you're looking for the Goldilocks staffing, you're looking for the Goldilocks surcharge, and you're looking for the Goldilocks fund balance. And I think, you really need to address that. And I think that these two people and their boards have the ability to answer that question. Too many plates. So one of the questions I think that Kim should be able to answer for you would be, okay, as their staff now, what plates is he going to drop? And if he's at a certain level of staffing, what plates will he have? Thanks.
Further comments, questions? Sorry, Herb.
I'll make a motion that we continue the staffing that we've had in the past with an executive director and a marketing person, and we will continue funding it at the level that it needs to be funded, either by managing our surcharge on a regular basis. And that we should continue to have a report from the Resource Recovery Council as to how well they're doing. That report that was put out by Bob was outstanding, and we need to be having that continually be part of our reporting here.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion? So your motion includes the surcharge?
It does.
Yes. Managing the surcharge.
Gee, I wonder what you'll vote.
But we have to figure out what the fund balance is going to be, too.
And I've always voted against the surcharge, but I'm comfortable with where it's at.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Thomas.
Well, I'm a lot more comfortable with the surcharge now than I used to be, but I'll vote yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Wheelock.
No. I haven't
We can
supported the
always
surcharge
count on
in
you
20
for that,
years. I'm
Sonny.
not going to support the surcharge today. Okay,
Dave, does that
moving
give-
forward.
Does that give you direction as to?
Yes, it does.
And does that help you?
It does.
You're going to get help.
Good.
You're gonna go wash his windows.
Oh, no.
All right, that brings us to the Finance Department.
His are cleaner than mine.
I will be brief. We're looking or presenting here the May trial balance for your primary operating fund, the general fund. I'm not sure what page number this is. My document didn't have page numbers, but you can see at the end of May, our cash balance was negative. That's not uncommon. You do have a fund balance that's slightly over 8 million. We're just about done with our audit. That balance has been confirmed. There are no major changes to that. I would point out that if you look at the accounts that are on this trial balance, one of the primary reasons that we have the negative cash balance is because we have paid off some of our outstanding building authority debt. We have helped some townships pay down their sewer and water debt, and we've also advanced funds to the septic treatment facility. So the fact that we have a negative cash balance is not a bad thing. We have other funds that are part of our common cash, and our cash position will change once the tax revenue is collected starting July 1st. The next page then is just a brief summary, side-by-side comparison of the revenues as of May 31st, 2013 versus 2012. And what I wanted to point out here, if you look at the charges for services, always try to be positive. The recording fees in the Register of Deeds office and the real estate transfer tax revenues are still really doing a good job for us. I mean, there's a lot of activity as far as real estate is concerned. I don't know how long that will continue. The one thing that usually when our interest revenues or the earnings on our investments are down, and they've been down for a long time, you see increased activity, with real estate transactions. So that has helped us year in and year out. But at some point in time, that will probably change because there's only so much property out there that's going to change hands. The big negative on, at this point in time is the reduced indirect cost recovery. There's about a $390,000 reduction compared to last year. That is a function of what we've done with some of our outstanding debt. When we paid off our building authority bonds, we no longer have the interest cost that's recovered through the cost allocation plan. But we've also received net asset distributions from MMRMA, which reduces our insurance costs. And that explains the reason for that significant variance in the revenue. And I'm working at covering that. You'll see a budget amendment in the budget amendments that absorbs or offsets almost 1/3 of that lost indirect cost recovery revenue. When you have lower indirect costs, that means we're charging lower costs back to all of those funds where we can recover those costs. And there is a budget amendment that does help offset about 1/3 of that lost indirect cost revenue. On the expenditure page, you'll see there's mention of the indirect costs again. This is that offset on the expenditure side. Lower appropriations to the circuit and district court primarily from those lower indirect costs. But on the expenditure side, we are within budget. We're tracking where we need to be. We don't have the staffing vacancies, even though we've had a lot of staffing or positions to fill. We're not realizing some of the personnel savings that we were a year ago at this time because we are at full staffing in our public safety functions, with the exception of our correctional facility, the jail. But I'm not, I don't see anything in the budget at this point other than the indirect cost revenue that I need to find a way to cover, and I am working on that with Dave.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well,
it's good, I would think.
What I need to do, and I'm working with our cost accountant, our consultant, to get the indirect cost plan done so that we can build those actual numbers into the budget before you adopt the budget, and we won't have these adjustments. We've also, our budgets, overall the budgets have come down in total the last few years, so that brings the indirect cost. The main reason that you build indirect costs into your budgets is to recover from federal and state grants. So if you have an indirect cost revenue in our general fund primarily, that means you have an offsetting cost in another fund somewhere. But it is real money that we can recover under federal cost accounting standards. The key is we have to be accurate. We don't want significant variances like this in our budget because you do build it in, to your budget to cover the expenditures that you have on the other side of the budget. But we have additional tax revenue that we've already received, and there's an additional payment that we received from the state on the liquor tax distribution that will more than offset that lost indirect cost recovery that has not been budgeted at this point. So I have not lost any sleep over that. So, and then the next item, I do have budget amendments that I would ask your approval on. And the first page does summarize the indirect cost revenue that we're decreasing, which is offset by appropriations or indirect cost line items that are in the general fund. And you'll see on the second page where the court appropriations are reduced accordingly by those lower indirect costs. And other than that, the other budget amendments are primarily additional grants that we receive for the district court, the mental health, and the sobriety court, which are carryovers. We have the Rotary Charities grant for the Parks Department planning grant. We did receive some funding for Fund 294 that had been discontinued, so that's a good thing. It's the Juvenile Accountability Grant, and some small adjustments for Commission on Aging. We budgeted some fund balance that had been reserved for the TART Trail in our County Facilities Fund, and then an adjustment to cover the amount that I overestimated the fund balance in the Capital Improvement Fund. But these are all to keep our budgets in line with where we're actually at with our operations in 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as presented.
Yes.
Motion by Inman, supported by Rennie. Is there further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The next item that's also in Dean's category is the land bank funding.
We actually have a land bank authority meeting tomorrow morning, I believe.
I know.
We have been accounting for the land bank activity in the foreclosure fund. That has worked for a good number of years, but it no longer is prudent to do that, in my opinion. We need to separate that activity out, and anytime we add a new fund, the county board should approve that fund. And I'm asking for your approval to do that so we can keep those activities separate. The county treasurer is also in agreement that we need to do this, as well as the planning and development department.
So moved.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Max Barr. Further discussion? I guess the thing that I would mention in here is, as I've reported to you over the last couple months, we received a $195,000 HUD grant for the purchase of property to be used for affordable housing. We had $100,000 in the Housing Trust Fund monies that we're able to use for the depot project. Those two pieces together paid for the total cost of the purchase of the property, plus some significant infrastructure toward the development in that partnership. But, like Dean said, he's still juggling it in a line item in a foreclosure fund balance. As we continue to grow the Housing Trust Fund, we continue to partner with either nonprofit organizations or for-profit developers, which is the new discussion. We simply have to have a way to account for it, and the accounting is not good the way it is now. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to
Tribal grants.
tribal grants. David?
Chris Kramer has gathered these together and prepared them. We have submitted the top one for the amounts that would otherwise be paid in lieu of taxes to the county. And Chris has asked that this be given immediate effect so that she can get it out the door. There's nothing left to do other than to get it out to them. So she's asked that the board give that approval tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the June 2013 2% tribal grant applications as prepared and submitted and is in our packet for ratification of the full Board of Commissioners.
Support. I have a motion, I have a second. Motion by Inman, supported by Limcool. Further discussion? I hope you note that these, we need to verify that we can enter into contracts and
that's right.
Be the fiduciary for some of these organizations that are not governmental function. And we've had some issues with some of those contracts in the past, and we've actually returned some of the money because we couldn't get the contracts in place. So, I think we probably will have one more go-round of this, maybe not, if we're lucky. The new compact in October of 2013 should get rid of this. It is just a very...
The Attorney General and I had a discussion within the last week about this.
It is not the way
Yes, I did.
It is not the way that this 2% money was to be distributed, and the consent agreement, and it's just simply not the way it's supposed to be done. And I've been a little more verbal than most about that for quite a while. So anyway, we have a motion to approve the 2% applications. Roll call vote, please.
Lemkool,
Yep.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yep.
Rennie,
Yes.
Max Power,
Yes.
Wheelock.
No. Okay, this would bring us, we have no unfinished business, so we have 2 items under new business, the first being the quitclaim deed that's on your packet today. Chris, you would speak to this, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, before Bob left, he sent me an email informing me that in 2006, American Waste transferred, or proposed to transfer, the transfer station located in Garfield Township to the county. That deal, that arrangement was never formally agreed upon. The plan back then, my understanding was, county would get ownership and then lease back the property to American Waste. The deal was reworked. I really don't know the details. I wasn't here in 2006. Nonetheless, as part of what occurred in 2006, a warranty deed was signed transferring the property to Grand Traverse County. So technically, Grand Traverse County owns the transfer station, even though the intent was, changed and a new agreement was worked out. So to technically transfer ownership back to American Waste, we have to go this route, and the county needs to execute a quitclaim deed transferring the interest back to American Waste. I've had discussions with their attorney. They've reviewed the quitclaim deed. They approved to it as to form. There is the third paragraph in the middle. It starts with, "It is expressly understood," and that explains why we're doing what we're doing, because of this warranty deed. Even though it's never recorded, the warranty deed nonetheless was executed, was signed, and Grand Traverse County is technically the owner. Again, the Exhibit A, that's just the legal description. It's back in my office. But we are asking that the quitclaim deed be approved and that the chairman, Herb, be authorized to sign it.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Inman, supported by Thomas. Herb?
Wasn't this part of our plan that we had to have a MRF station or something? And now they've taken, is that taken out of the plan? So therefore, we don't need this.
The former solid waste plan, which was revamped, a little less than a year ago, or just about a year ago now, required Grand Traverse County own and operate a materials recycling facility. Correct. It was required as part of the plan that we owned and operated it. And what we had done is, as a method to do this, is we had agreed to purchase this piece of property with American Waste money and then lease it back to them, and they would operate it on our behalf. Actually, there was a couple different opportunities along the way, but this is just one of the things that dropped through the cracks when we did the revised plan and took that out, that Grand Traverse County was not going to be in the solid waste business.
Now, this makes it taxable then? So it was non-taxable, now this is going to put it back on the tax roll?
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
It will.
We pay the transfer tax?
Well,
No, we are
Exempt?
We are exempt
All
because
right.
we're a government entity.
That works.
But remember, it's a MRF facility. It's a recycling facility, and the recycling facilities do not pay the tipping fee.
Yeah.
right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Do we want to make this immediate effect, or are you going to bring
Yes.
it back?
Yeah,
So
I
in the
prefer
motion, it
immediate
should be
effect.
immediate effect.
The motion and the second are happy with that?
Oh, happy
All
with
right,
that.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Just jumping up and down, aren't you?
I couldn't be
Okay, the next item, Dan had asked to discuss the swim area at Twin Lakes Park.
Yes, sorry to bring this up, but it's been almost 3 weeks since Owen Williamson died at the Twin Lakes swimming area. And I've had many, many sad discussions with citizens about that. I've been there myself, I've met with citizens, I met with the sheriff there. And maybe this is untimely, or maybe it's just in time, but I make the motion that we close that beach immediately to the public until the Parks and Recs and this board come up with an answer to protect our citizens better.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I would support that.
All right.
There's one problem. You can close the beach, but you can't keep them from swimming. That's public water, you can't keep them from swimming.
Well, we can do something. We
Well,
should do something.
She's got some ideas.
I have many.
I'm not sure of the legalities of us doing that, because we've given permission or we've given authority to the Parks and Recreation to manage our parks, and I'm not sure we can do that.
Yes, we can.
And so I'm just questioning Chris, is that a valid?
You know, that's something we'd have to look into and report back to the board. Off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. So,
Larry?
Well, I'm not faulting your thought, I guess if in a perfect world, maybe this would be the thing to do, but we did at this month, I think this month, discuss this matter when it first occurred, and that we were concerned about it, and the board did give official direction to have this issue discussed, dealt with, and come back with a recommendation how to make that area hopefully safer for the public to use, and that it was going to be addressed by the Parks and Rec Commission, and we were going to wait to have them address it and bring back what they wanted to do with that item. So we've already given direction to the Parks and Rec Department to look into it and make recommendations, and I think we're all free to make those comments to the Parks and Rec members, but I don't think it would be appropriate for us to once we've given them the direction now to do something different in the interim. So I guess my feeling is not I won't support the motion, not that I don't disagree with it. I'm not going to support the motion because I think the protocol of this board is that we already gave direction for Parks and Rec Board to address it, deal with it, review all the police reports and whatever, and to come back with some recommendations to hopefully make that safer in a very quick manner. And I don't want to intervene that matter before they've had a chance to deliberate and make a decision on it. So all I would do, Commissioner Lathrop, would be to encourage Dave to work with the Parks and Rec and Jason to get that handled quickly and to come back with some recommendations that, that could be, told to us. So that's how I guess I'd handle it, but.
Dan?
When we first made that decision, I agreed with it, but since then I've changed my mind.
Okay.
Herb?
we spent a lot of money on that beach making it handicap accessible. And, I'm just concerned about that. I don't think we've talked to Long Lake Township on this as to what their feelings are. And I think the motion, if you're going to do something like that, it probably should be a recommendation to the Parks and Recreation that we would recommend that they close the park. I'm not sure we want to make.
You didn't say close the park, you said close the beach.
Close the beach, I mean. So I just have a problem with the way the motion's.
Yeah, if you want to recommend, I'd feel a little more comfortable about it.
I would friendly alteration, I would settle for that. I just want to send a clear message.
That's the point.
To that board.
That this is important.
That this is really important to do something now. And I'm honestly sorry there wasn't a special meeting called about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm more comfortable with sending a message to them that, we would like to have this thing stopped until you can come up with a safety recommendation.
So, can I amend my motion?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, so I'd like to make the motion that we recommend the beach be closed immediately until they come up with an answer.
Okay.
To the Parks and Recreation Board.
Yes.
Does the board agree with the amendment?
I have one more discussion.
Well,
Okay,
no.
I would support
I said,
that.
did you support the amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. No, Charlie?
I think it's unconscionable that it's been 3 weeks, and I think this Parks and Recreation Department needs a message from this board to get on this. And I don't know if we can sit here and talk about this, but there was a dangerous situation out there. And whether we're legally or whatever responsible has nothing to do with it as far as I'm concerned. It's a public park. It should be safe. And I don't think it's safe at this point in time.
Dan?
When you look about the handicap accessory park, that empties in within 3 feet of a 7-foot drop-off. If anyone went in there with a wheelchair, they'd sink out of sight in a second. That's a dangerous spot for a handicapped person to be. I've walked in that water, and I've seen people measure it. But especially for the handicapped, it should be closed.
You have a comment? You know, I guess I have a couple of comments. Number one, first, this is a Parks and Recreation decision. This is not something this board should be having the discussion about at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And I will not support the motion because this is a Parks and Recreation Department decision. They are a Parks Commission, and they are charged with managing the parks on our behalf. And every time we turn around, this Board of Commissioners is second-guessing and cutting their legs out from underneath them. They have this matter on their agenda for tomorrow night's meeting, and I believe that recommendations are going to be made at that meeting. So I just think it's definitely inappropriate that this board weighs in on this issue before the Parks and Recreation Commission has an opportunity to discuss it. The second thing I will say is that during the entire public input process for Twin Lakes Master Plan, overwhelmingly you heard from the community and the public they wanted more access to that park. We've done a lot of good things out there to make that more accessible to the public. And, now when we're going to shut off part of it, I think that's totally contrary to the master plan and what we heard from the public. They wanted more access, not less. Charlie?
Again, it comes down, I think, to responsibility. And how long should we give them to come up with some alternative? It's been 3 weeks. Now they have a meeting tomorrow night. We don't know what's coming out of that meeting tomorrow.
It's on their agenda tomorrow night.
Okay, so why not send them a message to get on with it?
Chris?
Commissioner Rennie, Commissioner Lathrop, you're exactly right. I should have called a special meeting. That is my fault. I should have and didn't. And I have been beating the table for 2 years that place needs safety equipment and the water needs to be marked. I will have a presentation for the Parks Board tomorrow night. I would like to thank you, Commissioner Rennie, and you, Dr. Lathrop, for going out and taking a look at personally on a weekend and taking a look in 66-degree water as I jumped in and as my husband jumped in and showed everyone where that handicapped accessible entry is into the water. It is dangerous. I don't know who designed that, but clearly, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to have one, whoever did it was not a swimmer. I do apologize. I should have called a special meeting.
Further discussion?
Well, nobody in this room knows more about drowning than I do. And I got to say that I agree with you guys, but going back from what I know about public waters, I don't think we can just say you can't use it. Now, we can keep people from going in the lake. But once they're in the lake, that's public water. I don't know what, maybe we should have a resolution that says everybody in the county's gotta learn how to swim,
That's a great idea.
because not
Agree.
not even 30%.
I've been trying to do that.
Not
Do you
even
know-
30% of the people know how to swim.
Do you know, for $15,000 a year, I think we could do that. I'm dead serious.
Charlie?
I agree with Commissioner Thomas on that. We should show the public that we are concerned and do something, whether it's teach people how to swim or whatever. Great idea.
Further discussion? Sir, will you read the motion, please?
Yeah, it's a recommendation.
It was a recommendation to the Parks and Rec Commission to close the beach until an answer to protect the public is given.
Okay, you having heard the motion, roll call vote, please.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Thomas,
If I knew whether it was legal or not, I'd vote yes, but I've gotta vote no.
Rennie,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lemkool,
No.
Wheelock.
No. Motion carries. Okay. We have no other new business. Just let my computer go to sleep. But I believe that brings us to the second opportunity for public comment.
You'll have to line up.
I got a couple questions, but you already covered trash. Could I ask a few questions relative to that?
If we don't have to answer them, come on forward.
We always talk trash.
Introduce
I
yourself.
recycle.
Introduce
but not all the time.
Name.
Oh, Matthew Scheck, 306 West 9th Street. I didn't know, for recycling, the city does get a kickback on that? Is that what, that's not the correct terminology. It is you get money if citizens recycle.
We don't have anything
No.
like that. No.
All right, well, what was that terminology that you used?
Surcharge.
Tipping fee.
Okay.
All right, the tipping fee is collected at the landfill
Okay.
for trash, not recycling. All recycling that is collected, there's no surcharge for that. So the
Okay.
only thing that the revenue is derived off from is what actually goes to Glenn's landfill or Wexford County
Okay.
or Manistee or Waters, and is collected as trash.
Okay, so it's all trash, it's not just, the recycling part of it,
Recycling is exempt from the surcharge.
okay, all right. I just wanted to make my comments on recycling on that. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I think that's up to the individual. And the reason that I don't, though, is that I know that it takes energy to recycle, and I've read a lot of reports that, at least at the very beginning when recycling started coming, was catching on, and a lot of people in a lot of communities thought this is something that we really have to do. And I find out that it sometimes takes more energy to recycle, or the use of energy to recycle something, and we all think we're doing something to save the environment by recycling, and that isn't necessarily the case. So I think probably the best, to me, the best perspective here is that whatever businesses out there, that the trash haulers, the landfill people, I'd always say leave it in their hands. If they could make a buck out of something that I've thrown away, that's fine. I usually have enough perspective to know that if I've got a big battery, when I lived on a farm, you take the tractor battery in someplace because you can get a core value out of it. I wouldn't take it out to Hoosier Valley and throw it out or anything like that. So there's always ways that people that I think are more conservatively valued, you see, there's value in things. As a licensed builder, I would do that with construction material. Rather than pitching it, I could recycle it for my use and still make money on it. And I say all this because I think a lot of times all of us get sidetracked. We think we're doing something to save the environment, but that's never defined. Well, maybe it's been defined for us by the media, but we have global warming and we don't want to upset that balance there, but anthropocentric global warming is not a proven fact, number one. If you all remember, a year ago, March, we went into one of the biggest warming cycles that we've ever seen around here for a very long time. I think it was on March 6th, the temperature started rising and stayed warm for almost the rest of that month, and it threw off the cherry crop and destroyed many sour cherries. But a lot of people didn't put it together, but the world was, the start of the solar activity began then, and there was an X-class solar flare that hit in the Pacific Northwest at that time. We went through global warming because of something that the sun did, not something that because somebody, God forbid, buried a plastic bag for 10,000 years, like that's going to cause any kind of harm, or mankind it drives an SUV instead of a four-cylinder engine. So I'm just saying is that sometimes I think common sense should prevail. And I say that because even on the world stage, I just had an article here, I'll just quote this and I'll end it, but there was a Danish professor, he was a best-selling environmental author, Bjorn Lomborg, the German and Danish, talking about the German and Danish experiments that are being so highly touted as successful showpieces are instead unmitigated disasters. Remember in Europe, many countries in Europe switched over and went to windmills, solar panels, etc. Lomborg stated on John Stossel's television show in March of 2012 that Germany's colossal expenditure on solar energy, for instance, will have virtually zero impact on global warming. The Germans are spending about $110 billion on subsidies for the solar panels, Lomborg noted. The net effect of those investments will be to postpone global warming by 37 hours by the end of the century. So, you know, a lot of people think they're doing something, but if I bury a plastic bag for 10,000 years, so what? I don't lose any sleep over it, but I do know something about orogeny, and that's the crustal plates that we live on eventually do recycle. So that plastic bag is going to meet its end someday, and we don't need to worry about it. So, thank you.
About 8-10 years ago, what was it? We were talking about global warming right here. Sonny and I and Margaret Underwood got told by the Record Eagle that we were.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I know what to get you for Christmas, Sonny.
We were right there.
Mercedes?
Yes.
Anyway,
We're recycling that conversation tonight, and it's consuming a lot of energy.
There you go. All right.
Hello.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Commissioner committee reports.
Ain't got no.
Announcements, notices, announcements.
Is it tomorrow is the ribbon cutting for Acme? Is that tomorrow?
For what?
Or did I miss that?
Acme?
No?
For the tearing down those buildings.
Well, the building's getting
Oh,
torn
they
down right now.
started yesterday.
Probably
You
won't be
missed
hauled
it.
away.
It's all done now.
I think half of
But
it's
I thought
down.
there was a ribbon cutting for something with
Not that I was aware of.
Next week.
Yeah, it says police line, do not cross.
Yeah, there's the ribbon.
All right, we have no need for a closed session.
Hopefully
I will
not.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Doggone.
Everybody
Good night,
jumps
everyone.
up on that one.
Say goodnight, Dickie.